black soldier used for diversity campaign endured racism. Put it a full mask. It's a damn shame. Literally the poster child, the poster person, not child, for their diversity campaign experienced racism. Kerry-Ann Knight, a 33-year-old former British Army soldier who was the literal poster child for diversity on military recruitment posters, has received a financial settlement and an apology from the UK Ministry of Defense after enduring over a decade of racist and sexist abuse because of the campaign. Knight accepted the settlement from the British government in June, but the exact details of the sum were not made public. As part of the settlement, the MOD did not have to admit liability. In 2012, while in training, Knight appeared on a national recruitment poster aimed at promoting inclusivity. It featured the slogan, quote, "Your Army needs you and your self-belief." She exuded confidence as in an iconic pose, but instead of inspiring change, it led to 12 years of racism, sexual harassment also. Knight claimed the abuse stemmed from resentment over her being featured on the recruitment posters and her not deserving the spotlight. She initially believed she was chosen for her accomplishments when she agreed to appear on the poster. She later reflected on the experience, however, telling The Guardian, quote, "I didn't know it was because I was going to be the only black woman in that regiment. I didn't know what I was in for." With millions watching and many people benefiting from this program called Indisputable, we just need 1% of the viewers to become a paid member so we can continue to bring this content to you. Now back to the show. After enlisting at age 20 and completing her training, Knight joined the 26th Regiment Royal Artillery Unit and was stationed in Germany. Knight said she had, quote, "this bright hope that I'm helping to change things," but was confronted with a more disheartening reality. Quote, "There was a lot of sexism. However, when you put race into play as well, for me, it just felt like it was multiplied by 10. Per BBC News, Knight later took an instructor role at the Army Foundation College, but quickly felt unwelcome. Her role entailed training new recruits who enlist at 16 and 17 there. In her witness statement, she described colleagues shouting, "Watermelon," wherever she entered a room, leaving her feeling humiliated and mocked as others would laugh. Her role in the recruitment campaign exposed her to severe discrimination and abuse, leading to her abrupt departure from the Army. She left. In her tribunal statement, she described serving alongside individuals who supported racist groups like the KKK, Britain First, and English Defense League, and being called racial slurs like Black B-word, facing sexual harassment, including obscene vandalism in her own room. Knight overheard colleagues discussing horrific acts such as getting lynched and being tarred and feathered. One even mentioned putting her in a hot box, a reference to a torture scene from Django Unchained, where Kerry Washington's character, the enslaved Bermuda, is locked in a metal coffin due to punishment. Knight noted this film was frequently played by her colleagues, often on repeat. Over several years, Knight submitted complaints about racism, misogyny, providing evidence like WhatsApp screenshots, audio recordings, etc. Despite these efforts and the evidence, she was removed from her role training junior soldiers due to concerns about her, quote, mental or emotional state that they put her in, by the way, which the Army cited as the reason for removal. Quote, "I think when it got to that stage, that's when I just realized that the Army is institutionally racist," end quote. Knight said, and they would go above and beyond in order to discredit me as an individual, in order to protect the Army image, to portray that racism doesn't exist, even though it was there in black and white. Despite the detailed complaints about constant derogatory remarks, threats, humiliating incidents, the abuse continued, leading her to seek legal action. Knight, who grew up in Nottingham, served in the Army for more than a decade and left as a corporal earlier this year after filing an official complaint. The statement and public apology from the Army came after she took a case before a military tribunal in December 2022. Her legal defense was helped by who? The Equality and Human Rights Commission. Her solicitor, Emma Norton, from the Center for Military Justice said, quote, for the Army, it was not the racist that needed to be dealt with. It was Kerry-Ann, because she had the audacity to complain about racism and misogyny. It is all dreadfully familiar and shows again that in the British Army, it's worse to accuse someone of racism than it is to be a racist. Works like that in America too. Let some folk tell it. In last month's apology, the Army said, quote, the Army accepts that you had to work in an unacceptable organizational environment where you experienced racist and sexist harassment. There was a failure within the Army in not responding properly to that environment of your complaints about it, end quote. An MOD spokesperson added, we do not tolerate abuse, bullying, or discrimination of any kind, and encourage any personnel who believe they have experienced or witnessed unacceptable behavior to report it. All allegations of unacceptable behavior are taken extremely seriously and are thoroughly investigated. Proven swift action will be taken. They literally double talk. In the last thing they did was make two statements that completely contradicted. Obviously, you do tolerate it. Obviously, you do not take things like this seriously. The woman documented this for years. She was a team player. She believed that you all were like her, decent. You're not. All right. Jordan, thoughts?
So, this shows the problem is pervasive and not just in the United States.
That's right.
But think about how we got here and why people like that are drawn to the military. And you can't deny that when you have imperialist countries waging war against a group of people and ideologies that are typically framed by Western media as subhuman, you see that in the jingoism in our foreign policy, it's very easy for them to then just follow that line. Becoming in the United States military, you have a white nationalism problem. Going up the chain of command, as we've seen here, typically does not work because that whole system is designed to crush people who file complaints, who seek justice. It is there to protect their institutional power, and then it's there for them to point to and say, oh, if you had a problem, you should just run it up the chain of command. Well, the sexual abuse problem in the military in the United States ran rampant because these claims were quashed by going up the chain of command. They had to get outside help to even shine a light on it. And within the US military, there isn't specifically a code of ethics or rules or regulations around hate crimes. So in a military tribunal, you can't even make a hate crime claim like you could in the US justice system at large. So all of these factors play into that dynamic where you have recruiting that feeds into white nationalist tropes, the myth of war sold to people who are drawn to that premise, that idea, and that problem festers without any real accountability.
Yeah, and the reality is the biggest lie we fell for is that we need war in the first place.